our party's left, and he's now saying goodbye to his party, and they're shuffling out. He's shaking people and smiling and laughing and kind of doing an impression of me doing him and vice versa.
Yeah, right.
And
you like literally were watching him do his like shake people and laugh thing.
Yeah.
Like,
it was amazing. Truly.
Yeah.
Very, very surreal.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of A Great Conversation here on Nerds in Suits. Today my guest is Evan Ferrante, one of my good buddies and the world's single best Tom Cruise impersonator. He's got this shit on lock, so to speak. This guy's hilarious. He's a wonderful dude and also plays Magic the Gathering. So, I mean, seriously, the connection there is strong. It's always fascinating to talk to somebody who's the best at something that they do, and as well as being a terrific guy. I knew about Evan long before I ever met him and was a big fan. So this is great. I'm really glad you guys showed up for this one, and I think you'll get a kick out of hearing him both do the bit, but also just like what's behind the guy that does the bit. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. A big thank you to Lucas Shashek and Nicole Krafik for being my Infinity patrons here in the Nerd Network. A big time straightening of the tie to each and every one of my patrons. Stay tuned to hear your name at the end of the episode if you're at any of the levels below Infinity. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening, guys. Be sure to check out everything that Evan is doing. He's on Cameo. He's on TikTok. He's got all kinds of cool stuff. It's all linked in the description. Thanks for watching the episode, and leave a comment afterwards. Just, you guys all know this, but comments on YouTube go a long way. They really do mean everything. The way the video performs is favored by that type of stuff. So help me out and leave a comment. Thanks for watching, guys, and enjoy the show. So you cut yourself shaving. You was slick shaving cream. You weren't slick enough for the shaving cream.
No, I was very clumsy this morning and destroyed my chin. Yes, it was. No, wow. Sorry, yesterday. And now I'm scabbing over here, and it's really unsightly. But you got to live with your. You got to live with your scars. I got a lot of scars. There's just one of them.
Yeah, we're all gonna have a lot more scars coming out of this pandemic, man. I feel like it's. I feel like every time I haven't talked to you in a little while. It's been a while since we've got to catch up.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, man. I mean, you're one of the first people I thought of actually when I started this show. I was thinking about really the most interesting people I know, or the people that I think have the most fun stories to tell. But it was during pandemic, so like it's a weird thing. I don't get that like day to day where I kind of go through my week and I interact with people.
You're right, because we all have our priorities, and during the pandemic, it's like we got to really be selective about the choices we make, about what we say yes to, what we say no to. But of course, I said yes to you. You're a professional. You always wear the nice snazzy suits, and you've got a charismatic personality, and you play Magic the Gathering. So it was a no-brainer to me.
It was right. Exactly. I got to tell you, for anybody that doesn't know, with Evan and I, this is the strangest coincidence. Yeah. So I heard of you and was a big fan of you before I ever met you. You know this. Yeah. I told you the story before. It was like long ago. I found like one of your early videos you did. It was like this Twilight parody.
Yeah.
And I watched it like 100 times. That was the funniest fucking thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
I showed all my friends this thing. And so all these years later, I meet our mutual friend, Aaron. I ended up randomly having a birthday party. We share a birthday party like 4 or 5 years ago.
The one with the cage. I forgot the theme, but there was a cage. Yeah.
The Nick Cage birthday party. Where I built the cage. Get Cage.
Yeah, that's right.
You showed up to the party because he's like, my friend. And so you're there and you're like, your birthday, I'll do a Tom Cruise thing. So you do the whole thing the whole at the party, which is the best gift ever. And then it turns out, of course, just in the strangest coincidence that you also play Magic. Like,
I know.
I would have probably just met you eventually anyway, as like another LA nerd that plays Magic. That's probably what would have just happened by chance, right?
Yeah, Magic wasn't something that I really thought about doing at the ripe age of 39. I think I got into it around 38 years old. But I was developing a board game or considering designing a board game at the time. And I was learning about all these like game mechanics and like what was interesting, what worked, what didn't work. And there was a guy named Doug who worked at a game shop, Turn Zero, who kind of shepherded me into that world and then finally dangled the carrot of Magic the Gathering and said, it's a little bit intense for you. You're going to get sucked in. It's like cardboard crack. You're going to get addicted. So let's just put that on the side right now. It's too much for you right now. Like I wasn't at the right level and he didn't feel I was worthy yet, or not worthy, but like he just knew that it would become a massive obsession, and he was right. Because 2 years later, I was like, all right, let me try this game, Magic. Let's see. Because he was like, it's the greatest card game ever made. He talked up such a big game, and it's true. It really is the greatest game I've ever played in my life, and I still play it to this day. I'm having a baby next month, so I'm kind of winding down. Of all my hobbies are kind of disintegrating. I'm transitioning into a dad, and I don't know what to do with my 7 decks that I have and the $10,000 I've spent on it in 3 years. But I'm gonna I'm gonna have to sell off some of my decks, but I'll have to keep some of them as well because they're dear to my heart, you know. But I can't play standard or modern. Can't get caught up in that. But Commander every now and then to stay sane. Of course.
Yeah, right. You hold on to some of the best ones. So I'm not so totally Commander. I'm on the opposite end. However, my co-host of the podcast, Alex, has finally. It's taken him years to convince me to play Commander. I had such an aversion to it for such a long time.
Because you're a modern player. Are you a modern player typically?
Yeah, I'm a modern or like I would just say 1v1 Magic where it feels competitive enough.
Well, I play 1v1 as well. I play the dual commander rules or Archon rules, French Commander or whatever. I do 1v1 as well. But I haven't. But sorry, go on about multiplayer. Yeah. So you just recently got into it?
Well, there's just this one, and guys, for those of you that are watching and listening here, I'll bet you didn't think you were going to get the rundown.
This is an esoteric conversation, but I'm sure you must have talked about it before.
Oh, right? Yeah. I mean, we have the podcast about it. Yeah, everybody knows I do this.
But, yeah, of course.
I learned to play Magic, and I think a lot of people did just with this understanding of the rules. You talked about game design and rules. Like the 1v1 element of Magic is the way that I envision it. It's very hard for my brain. Something I've learned, right, is I'm a little OCD with the stuff I'm into. So if something doesn't function the way my brain sees it, it's almost like I don't see color, right? So when it's like we're playing Commander and I'm like, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to kill you because I do this. And someone's like, I'll arbitrarily save him. I'm like, what?
Why did you
do that? That's not right. I'm like, that's what a stupid thing. Why would you do that?
Someone at the other end of the table does something like Cyclonic Rift or something or some broken card like that. Yeah. Totally disrupts the game.
Totally. Yeah. And it like throws me off. And so then I notice I don't have as much fun. So I've had to like train myself to build differently and play differently and look for a different experience when I play it. And it's finally starting to work. We play every Monday streaming on the channel now.
When you play big multiplayer games, there's other formats I'm sure you're familiar with, but Secret Partners makes it a little more interesting, Have you played that? Secret Partners? Yeah. Lone Wolf and everything, And you told me about one a long time ago where you play 6 decks at once.
Yeah, we still do that.
Actually. I haven't done that yet. And I have 6 decks now, so I could do it.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, we should get you into it, but let's have you be a good dad first.
Yeah,
so I feel like that'll supersede. How's Lily doing, by the way? She's a month out.
6 weeks. Yeah, basically. It could happen. Could happen in a month.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, it's wild. I'm very excited. I'm just like I'm everything. I'm every emotion you could think of. I just want to be prepared as much as I can. So we're getting all of our stuff in order, our nursery, all of the things we need. Obviously a lot of baby wipes, a lot of diapers. Basically the baby has like a seat for every room or some kind of cushion or something you can rest in.
Sure.
Every house, every the car, we're getting a new car, a very safe, family friendly car. I never thought I would own a Subaru, but I'm going to get a Subaru.
I love it.
Yeah, but I'm becoming a dad. I'm doing all the things I need to do to prep for that. Reading all the books you can think of. 4 books right now.
Yeah,
I'm cramming.
Wow. So that's why. Were you planning on this? This was like a thing that you guys were like, okay, we're gonna do the next thing. We're gonna have a baby, or did this sort of surprise you?
Well, look, we're both getting older. We're not getting any younger. We're of course totally signed on, right? We're like totally on board now.
Yeah.
But we've fluctuated in our lives, going gravitating back and forth, and we're just not really thinking we wanted a family or needed a family to be satisfied, just basically decided, I guess within a year's time, I guess she was feeling the urge to give it a try. I was like, yeah, why not? Let's give it a go, and maybe it'll turn into something. Maybe it'll happen because a lot of people take years and years and they don't have a baby. It takes years and years.
Right. It's not like, hey, let's get pregnant next month. We'll be.
But for us, it was extremely easy and did not take a lot of times to make it happen. We were lucky. We were very lucky. Yeah.
That's terrific, man. Well, it's really, really exciting. I've been following along on social media. Now, those of you, we started off with Magic, but those of you that don't really know, Evan, you are the best Tom Cruise impersonator in the world.
Thank you.
You're known.
Thank you.
I don't even think I'm just giving you a compliment. I think it's a fact. I think if you look up Tom Cruise impersonators online, I don't think you come across someone who anybody is convinced does a better job. You're just the guy.
Yeah. I mean, there's one other guy who does, look-alike work, and he's does look like him. He's a younger looking guy, and but he also is French Canadian and has like a French accent, so it doesn't really work. I'm like the go-to voiceover, and also I do live appearances too, of course, and commercials and stuff, and film. But I'm the go-to guy to like do the performance and the voice. And I've been getting work as an impersonator for about 12 to 15 years professionally. Yeah.
The voice is the thing that I'm the most always taken. And it's not even just when you're doing the Cruise bit. I can hear it when you talk. I hear Cruise just a little, not all the way. I can still hear you, but I definitely can get that your vocal tone matches just well enough. You don't have to work that hard to get the tone, right? That's got to be how it started, right? You could kind of hear it.
It's definitely naturally there to some degree. Of course, I put it on and articulate things a little bit more, Dorothy Boyd, or tell me to sign with Bob Sugar because I'm a little moved by your word is stronger than oak thing. Pregnant pauses. The pauses are really important. Laughing to serious to intense, red light, green light, or kids you've never seen me very upset. But for the most part, I kind of naturally have been blessed with his vocal cords, and I say blessed because it's turned into a surreal but profitable career for me, and not something again I ever expected. Just like with Magic the Gathering, my whole life is a series of happy accidents. I fell into the Tom Cruise thing, to Magic the Gathering, rock climbing, for instance, which I'm obsessed with now. But everything I just fall into. I don't really plan it out. I don't really think this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. But I have always been an entertainer. I was a child actor from like 7 to 20. So there was always in my blood to perform and entertain. But nowadays, and I've wanted to throw in the towel several times as a Tom Cruise impersonator and give it a rest, because I had nightmares of seeing myself in Vegas in my 50s and like an Elvis impersonator, but Tom Cruise, but a little heavier, bearded, just like giving up, drinking, swigs of alcohol in the dressing room, in the green room, and then looking in the mirror and doing the whole, not Taxi Driver, Raging Bull kind of monologue, but
drunk.
But exactly, drunk Tom. It's a bit. Everything's a bit with Tom Cruise. So. But in the past few years, I've been kind of emboldened, or my career has been reinvigorated by just a recognition that what I do really does bring joy to people's lives. And I think Cameo, the platform that I'm on, where I do like special shout out videos to people for birthdays, anniversaries, promotional work, stuff like that, co-workers, promotion stuff. That's really helped to show me that there's a real, not just demand for what I do, but it really makes people happy. And so when I get out of bed every morning, besides having a lovely girlfriend and having a baby soon and having other things to live for, I really do have like a purpose to spread joy to people's lives, because that really makes me very happy. So yeah.
It's crazy to think that so Cruise is the biggest megastar of our lifetime. I think, and I'm like the biggest Tom Cruise fan.
Yeah, for sure.
Adore Tom Cruise.
That really can't be contested.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a few actors you can think of who are like enormously famous, right? Like The Rock is really famous, but Cruise is kind of in a class of his own, where like even at his age now, he's sort of instantly recognizable to people. And I was sort of thinking, like, how many celebrities can you think of from the last 20 years where doing an impersonation of them would be as memorable, right? I think Donald Trump or Obama, someone like that, is pretty meaningful. I think
they get a lot of work.
Have that kind of. Yeah. How many young actors can you think of who are like 45 or younger? I mean, there's no such thing as like Leonardo DiCaprio impersonators, really. I'm sure there are, but
I know a guy. I know a guy who does his name is Ben Cornish. He's very good. Yeah. He's a spitting image of DiCaprio, and he actually does kind of sound like him too. But he's an actor first and foremost, but he just happens to look just like him. And it's a blessing and a curse for him, truly, because unlike myself, I'm not a lookalike. I'm just an actor impersonator. He looks like him, and he's mistaken for DiCaprio all the time. And he's also pigeonholed into that as a major, as a working actor. So it's done great things for him in his career, but it's also hurt him a lot too. So, and he's expressed that to me before. So it's kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, no, what I'm saying is I did win the lottery of life by happening. I happen to impersonate and have the voice box of one of the biggest movie stars in the world. I definitely fell into some good fortune.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, so another question I have, because
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the idea of anybody who picks up a trade that's like, like there's a lot of things. Being an impersonator is the kind of thing where you may sound like Tom Cruise, but you've had to work at it a lot. I know you've had to put in effort and practice to really be able to get the mannerisms and all that. And so I think about people who are impersonators in general, who can do a lot of impressions. I always find it really impressive when people have a great library of impressions, magic tricks, things like that. Have you ever considered going outside of the Cruise space and try to get a second one or a third one? Do you have a second one or a third one?
No. So the answer is no. I have thought about it, but I also know how much time and effort is needed to fully cultivate another impression. And the impressions in general do not come easy to me. Same thing with foreign accents or foreign languages. They just don't come easy to me at all, believe it or not. I happen to just very, very luckily just do Tom Cruise very well, naturally. Of course, I've worked on it and spent time with it, but I just don't have the time and energy to really focus on that as well. I have been approached in the past by Mad TV, and I think SNL, I believe they did approach me as well, or at least inquire about whether I do other impersonations, because in order to be on those shows, you do 3. So I only do 1, which is unfortunate. But at the same time, to be honest, at my age, maybe if I was in my early 20s and I had a knack for other impersonations, it would have been great. But I can't. I don't have the energy to do it at 41. I can't do 8. However, their schedule is insane, like truly insane. SNL. I don't think I could do it. I would do a guest performance, but I couldn't be a regular. No way.
Yeah, I think things like that, people have a dream. They have a dream of being able to add that to their sort of skill set. Because I've had sort of dreams like that before. I do a couple impressions, but nothing like you. I mean, just they're for fun, and I enjoy them if I'm on talk shows or whatever. I can do little bits and pieces in Nick Cage or something like that, but nothing that's really good. I know there's guys that crush Nick Cage. Like I would do it, and they would be like, "That's terrible. You sound nothing like Nick Cage." And I'm like, right, because you actually sound like the guy because you put in the work.
Exactly.
But anyway, so that's awesome though. When did it start? I guess is my question. Did I remember you had like a buddy in college and you guys? Is that a thing?
So as the legend goes, and I've told this story many times, and I'd love to like pick his brain. Alex Merkin is the guy's name, and also some of the other people who witnessed the rise of my Tom Cruise impersonation to really get like the full detailed story. But essentially, I went to Boston University, and I'm just going to just kind of like, stream of consciousness ramble about how it all came to be. And I was put into a hotel, believe it or not, as a freshman, along with other freshmen, called Howard Johnson's Hotel. I'm sure you've heard of it, right? Hojo's? Howard Johnson's? No?
No, I don't think so. No.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's popular on the East Coast, but anyway, it was called Hojo's, and it was a dorm room / hotel, like legitimately a hotel where there'd be a concierge but it was outfitted to be a dorm room for people who didn't file their paperwork on time. So it was kind of the consequence of doing that. And it was supposed to be a punishment of sorts. But it turned out to be the greatest experience because we did have an RA on the floor, but we didn't have any security. You could roll a keg up up into the elevator, and we'd have parties all the time. We had maid service, so we would just purposefully make messes. I mean, I know it sounds terrible because we would be cleaned up the next day. We had free cable, HBO, everything, and like incredible central air and stuff because it was a hotel. Anyway, long story short, but it wasn't a social atmosphere because it wasn't a typical dorm room. So we had to invent ways in which we could, and become very creative, ways in which we could meet other people, other kids, specifically other women, or members of the opposite sex, or whoever we were gunning for, So my friend Alex Merkin does a Jean-Claude Van Damme impression, not professionally, just for fun, and he does a very good one. And he's a director today, and he was a film student at the time. And he said to me, you naturally kind of sound like Tom Cruise. Jerry Maguire had just come out a year before, and he said, "Can you just learn a few lines like, help me help you, or do, you don't know what it's like to be out here for you. It's up at dawn, pride swallowing siege that I can never fully tell you best. Just help, right? Or Dorothy Boyd, thank you. I'm looking.
Did you like Tom Cruise? Were you a fan?
I was a fan. I'm not. Look, I wasn't a super fan, and I still to this day, even though I really appreciate his work, and I do think he's the greatest movie star in the world. I don't have posters adorning my wall, and I'm not like
sure.
I don't have merchandise of his really, but anyway, we tag teamed together and formed a little Abbott and Costello routine where he does Jean-Claude Van Damme and I did Tom Cruise, and we knock on dorm rooms together and met women that way, and it worked. It worked a high percentage of times. The other times the door was slammed in our face, but it was it was a fun little thing we did. Yeah,
that's so funny, and it just so happened like 1996. Tom Cruise is in the phase of his career where like 97, as you're talking about, like he's in the phase of his career where he had his little I'm the young hotshot guy in the 80s. Sure. Now he's producing his own movies. Mission Impossible is the same year as Jerry. And just before he gets into the gigantic, like, I look like I'm in my mid-30s career part, where that's like Last Samurai, Minority Report era. So he's still young, but he's like playing. And I feel like the world also still thought he was kind of sexy. Like he hadn't lost his sexuality like he has now, where he's like transcended sexuality now. Like he's not a sexy anymore. Sure. He's just Tom. He's just Tom.
But he was still dreamy back then. Yeah, like definitely.
Yeah. The world. So that's so funny that, and also like, but it's also bizarre thinking in 1996, Cruise, Jean-Claude, it's still probably Cruise, Jean-Claude.
Right.
But then it's like, right. Like the Jean-Claude Van Damme impression today, I feel like most people would be like, what is that you're doing? What is that voice you're doing?
For sure. Right? Even though mad props to him and JVCD was incredible. I love Jean-Claude Van Damme. Love him.
So do I. Yeah. But did you ever watch Jean-Claude Van Johnson on Prime? Did you ever see that show that he did?
Oh, I have seen that. Yeah. Kind of in the same vein as JVCD a little bit, kind of mockumentary of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it just started off as just a fun thing we would do together, and then he never did it again, and then it was just me, and he would ask me to do Alex Merkin, the guy who started me in this, would push me to do it at frat parties or any party that would be on campus, and people knew me as Tom and not as Evan. They didn't even know my name. And eventually I threw on some sunglasses. I was like, oh, this is a nice little accessory that creates more of an illusion. And little by little, it became more of a concept in my head that this could be something that could, lead to, maybe a career of some sort. I mean, again, I was always acting. And when I got out of college and then YouTube came about a few years later, or Funny or Die, I was encouraged to put up some videos because they were new platforms. Maybe something would hit, maybe someone would see it. Because I was still of the traditional mindset. I had an agent from a very young age and manager, and I didn't really understand the power of video and the internet, compounded by the internet at that time. Viral wasn't even a thing when I put up those videos. I put up this early video at the beginning of YouTube, like 94 or something. And same thing with Funny or Die. Like I put up the Tom Cruise is a cock block video, which turned into a trilogy, but that really blew me up. And the first video was put up probably a month or two after the very first video on Funny or Die, the Pearl landlord video. So
of course.
1 month after that, I put it up when it was in its inception, and it went to immortal status, which was their version of viral. And I started getting calls from people in Hollywood, and like I was still on the East Coast at the time, and I would just get random calls from people from, Disney. Take 180 Studios was one of them, flew me out to do the Twilight audition video that you saw. But that's when I started getting a lot of work after Tom Cruise is a cock block. And also that first video I did where I did like a montage of Cruise's greatest performances to commemorate him and Kate Holmes, or Katie, Tomcat, their nuptials. That was the first video I ever did on YouTube. I did it without glasses, without a wig, just me, just acting. I did have some props. I had like a blazer. I did the tighty whities. I had my fish, I had an orange pen cap that looked like a fish inside a bag. But yeah, I just like, I just kept putting myself out there, and I just wasn't afraid to do that because I knew that I had some sort of semblance of skill and talent, and it just takes the right person to see it. Because then I just started realizing, holy shit, people are not just watching this, but sharing this. I didn't realize it was such a shareable content was the thing. It didn't. None of it made sense to me. I was like in the beginning of all that, you know.
Totally. So I remember, I saw the Twilight one. That's how I found out about you. And then I went and I looked up the Tom Cruise the Clockbuck video, which I think is also really funny, by the way. And in some ways, I actually find funnier because the Twilight thing is so much more gimmicky for Twilight. It is funny for Twilight. But the Tom Cruise the Clockbuck thing is like, so okay. All this to say, mostly that's doing lines. That's doing Cruise lines. They're all doing their own lines. Tom Cruise, it's time for you to leave. You know, and
so not only will I not leave, go on. Not only will I not leave the party, but I'm cock blocking the girl, and I only speak in Tom Cruise lines.
That's the best part when you're giving the one line to her. You're like, I don't know what it's supposed to be. One of the best nights of my life. You're giving the whole line. It's really, really, really stupid. But like,
who's come with me? Who's come with me? Yeah.
Yeah. So did you ever mess around with doing more freeform, the voice of Tom Cruise, making up your own bits, or was it always lines from movies you found to be just like a lot more resonant?
No. Well, you know, that definitely helps, but I actually got bored by doing that because I did it so much. It's almost like, not that I'm, you know, a major rock band, but it's analogous to like a rock band singing the same songs over and over, even though they're beloved songs, but they just get tired of them. So I wanted to figure out a way how to make this interesting and not boring and dialed in for me. So I ended up creating, my whole career has been built on since then, of expanding his universe, almost like world building, transmedia storytelling, creating a window into Cruise's world that you otherwise wouldn't be privy to. And I provide that window into something fantastical and, you know, outrageous and surreal. And he lives a very private existence. So I'm basically showing you what some parallel world of Tom Cruise could be.
Sure.
And I inject Tom Cruise, my persona that I created, which is like a heightened version, into normal, everyday, mundane things.
My friend Miles Fisher is another guy that does.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
You probably know Miles. He did the running video. Of course. And Miles is really talented. People confuse me with him. I'm like, no, that's Miles Fisher. He's amazing. He's a very good actor, very talented. Yeah. Yeah, and he does a whole other thing, but his Tom Cruise is he doesn't have quite the same voice. It's like you've got the voice like a little. He's got
the look down. He got the mannerisms. He's a very good actor, but I just happen to have the vocal quality a little bit more, which does sell it. But you know, we both do. You know, he's. It's funny when he did the presidential running video. I didn't expect to see that from him at all because he hadn't impersonated Tom Cruise in over a decade. Like he did one a long time ago, and then it'd been years, and so that came as a total shock and surprise. I was like, okay, I guess my career is over now. But it turns out we do very different things, and I fully respect his work and his craft. He's terrific. I have nothing but you know, respect for the guy.
Well, because he I think he did Cruise in superhero movie maybe or one of those movies that he was in. Yeah,
no, he totally did.
So
I don't know if he's aware of this though, but I was originally cast in that role. He may not be aware of this. Yeah, I actually have a letter from Harvey Weinstein, because I was in New York at the time, and I think he was LA based, and they were getting me on the phone with the prosthetics and like makeup. I was signing a contract like that week. Fully went through it. They were like offering me the part, or they did offer me the part, and then I got an apology letter from the Weinstein company, but signed by Harvey Weinstein and Bob, saying how much they'd love to work with me in the future, but they ended up going this route because I think he's a local or something. I don't know what the final reason was, but that it could have been me, but it was him, and he did a great job.
Yeah. Well, so I do think it's funny though, like you said, there's he sort of fits in a different lane of his Tom Cruise impression, but all that to say, I think what you've done with it is amazing, and it's so fun to think that you've kind of moved around and gotten outside it. So when you got into doing it, and now that you've been around it for such a long time, if Tom Cruise is not your favorite, what are you a fan of in the movie world? You're a movie fan, right?
Yeah, of course I am. By the way, if Tom Cruise again is one of my favorite actors, so I don't want to just start off by saying he's not my favorite. He is one of my favorites for sure. But I really appreciate genre storytelling, sci-fi, Black Mirror, kind of like grounded science fiction.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, I like I like anything with good writing, of course, but I gravitate mainly to things that are kind of thought experiments or alien technology, AI,
Okay,
anything
sure,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah. I love Cameron. I love The Abyss is one of my favorite underrated Cameron flicks.
Great movie.
Love Shawshank Redemption. Obviously, does it for me.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Mel Gibson's films. Not necessarily him, but I love Apocalypto. I mean, come on, who else could do Apocalypto?
Still never watched it.
Still never seen it. It's incredible.
Yeah, still never watched it.
It's a ancient language that he used. No name actors in it, and one of the best, most riveting stories from beginning to end. It's a marvel what Mel Gibson can do. He's really one of the best storytellers in history.
He's made some incredible movies. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Yeah. I think to some degree, like, there's a lot of people that when you go back to the Cruise conversation that have that same insistence of separating artists from art. People have their opinions about him and all the stuff he's involved in. I find more and more these days the importance of doing that is it's hard to enjoy a lot of what you enjoy if you're unwilling to do that. And that goes beyond just performers. I mean, some people don't want to eat at Chick-fil-A anymore or I know. And I get it. I totally understand it.
Everyone draws the line somewhere. You got principles. Some people are very strongly principled. I'm not the kind of person to boycott artists. It's a very difficult situation. It's like now I'm a little more sensitive to it. Like I don't go on Woody Allen binges, but at the same time, I really do appreciate some of his work. Same thing with Polanski, same thing with Gibson. It's like, it's hard for me to say I don't appreciate their craft and their work, but obviously they're tortured souls or they're people that I don't really want to fraternize in public with or have friendships with. There's a lot of really messed up actors out there too that I don't really want to share my time with or space with, but I do think they're geniuses at what they do. I've always separated the artist from the art, but I do understand people who are, who take strong stands on that. If they're so inclined, I respect for that. Another one of my favorites though, Cinema Paradiso. You ever see that?
Also never seen that. Yeah.
But have you heard of it?
Never seen it. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. So that was, of course. Well, I mean, look, these are some of them. It's an obscure film, but it was. Not so obscure because it won Best Foreign Film, but it's still like a foreign film. But it's one of the most beautiful films. If you're a romantic at heart, then it will just rock your world. It is one of the most beautiful films ever. The music is Ennio Morricone, who recently passed away.
Yep.
But yeah, that's one of my favorites for sure.
I find, do you have a genre that, like when you're watching a movie, maybe it's late at night and you're just like, I don't want my brain to have to work too hard. I'll turn this thing on. Do you have a genre you gravitate towards? It's like you'll watch some trashy movie from the 90s maybe or something like that.
Any Nick Cage movie any Nick Cage movie that I haven't heard of. You know those movies on Netflix that you're scrolling, you're like, wait a second.
Primal.
Nick Cage,
Primal,
what is this?
Mom and Dad.
Whatever it is, like you've never heard of it. It was never heavily. It's
Running with the Devil.
Like Bruce Willis is almost the same, but not quite because his movies that are bad may just be really bad. But Nicolas Cage, you always get something out of it, always get a benefit out of. But Nicolas Cage and Bruce Willis, and I think what's the other guy who does it too? John Cusack. All people I respect as actors. They do movies with this producer. I won't mention his name, but they basically pay him their fee. The $5 million or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what the film is, they do it. And it just gets some sort of distribution deal, gets a Netflix deal, gets promoted on whatever. But it's not a good movie. None of them are good. But Nicolas Cage is bad good. Like it's a different kind of film, His movies are always enjoyable.
So he'll swing for the I know the whole class of films, the actors involved you're talking about, because so my friend John has been in a handful of these movies. He was in Arsenal with Cage and Cusack.
My cousin Adrian was in that. Arsenal, right? Yeah. Adrian Grenier, isn't it Arsenal? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I didn't know that's your cousin?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Oh, wild. Crazy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't know that.
I know.
Really? Like
Yeah, he is.
Vince Montrage is your cousin?
He is. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Huh. Oh,
So
bizarre. I've known you
he's
for
my
years and I didn't
cousin.
know that.
He's my cousin through marriage, but my uncle married his mom about 20 years ago. I think 20
Huh.
years ago now. Yeah. So we had a
So-
production company together for years. That's why we were. Yeah, I thought you knew that. Sorry, but anyway.
No clue. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. I love him. But so Arsenal, which
Yeah.
obviously, and my friend
Yeah.
John is.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, he's his older brother in the movie.
Okay.
And so I did an interview with John Scheck, is his name, Jonathan Scheck.
Yes, of course. Yes.
He was on this channel like a month ago. We did an interview. So, but so John comes in when I meet him a few years back, and he's telling me stories about working on the film. John's worked with everybody. But he just worked on Arsenal. He was
Tom Hanks, right? Didn't he do the Tom Hanks movie?
He did That Thing You Do.
Yeah.
And so he's telling me, he's like, we get Cage for like a day or two, he's like, and I'm excited to work with the guy. I've never met him before. And he's like, so I've got my lines. I'm sitting there. I'm sitting down. I'm waiting for him to come in. And so Cage walks in right on time. And he's wearing this like maroon red suit. He's got this big prosthetic nose on. And Cage walks in and he struts across the room and he sits down and he's like, he sits down, he looks across the table and he's like, okay, Jonathan, let's do this. And
very good impression, by the way.
And he's like, and for the next few hours, he just proceeded to do whatever he felt, whatever he wanted. He's like, he threw a glass like inches from my head, smashed it across against the wall.
Oh my
God. He was like, totally and completely just like, and so there was like, you hear this about Cage and how much of a risk taker he is. My friend Brendan was just in a film with him. My friend Brendan just this movie with him called Color Out of Space.
That's when you see the magic happen, though. That's when the magic happens.
And he likes to tell the story that, like, Cage is such a film fan that he's like, and he'll make references to other movies when he's working. So like,
he's a Coppola. He's a fucking Coppola.
Totally. And he's like, we're gonna do a scene from this with big glasses and straw dogs. Dogs. Like that's kind of how he. And I love that. Like I love the idea because. So, but anyway, back to the whole of those movies, Arsenal, or there was another one called Reprisal, I think. Yeah. About Willis, and the Marauders is a Willis one.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's such a strange genre of movie that exists now.
I think Marauders was the one that he was in, that Adrian was in. Marauders. I think
that Grenny is definitely.
Was it Arsenal?
Adrian's definitely he's definitely the younger brother.
He was the younger brother. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. He gets in trouble with the cops, he gets the mob or something. It's like I think it's a sequel to Deadfall, actually.
But anyway, these are the movies that I'm scrolling on Netflix. I'm like, I want to watch something brainless. Maybe I'll be entertained. Certainly with Cage, I'll be entertained. Did you ever see Cage in Bad Lieutenant 2, Port of Call, New Orleans?
Port of New Orleans. I have. Yeah. It's
fantastic.
Werner Herzog movie, isn't it?
Yeah, with Val Kilmer, Werner Herzog. Yeah. That's a special film. That is a very, very good film.
Cage is crazy in that one.
And then, of course, one of my favorite Cage films, Adaptation. You ever see that? Yeah, ever.
Oh, yeah.
I love his early Lynch films. And Mandy, the genre film, Mandy. Loved Mandy.
Still haven't seen that. Still haven't seen Mandy. I've heard it's it's weird and interesting.
So good. It's like an acid trip the entire time. It's really, really good. Like very atmospheric. The filmmaker is extremely talented. The music, everything about it, just visionary. For a low budget film, visionary.
He's close to the top of my list of favorites of all time, Nick Cage. And he's also he's also in a class of his own now where he's like sort of still A-list without doing A-list work for the most part. He doesn't really he's almost considered to be sort of a joke by some people, but like, if you're a real fan. If you're a real fan, you can understand the sort of joke nature. You can understand it, but you also he for instance, if you compared Nick Cage and you were to say like right now, we just found out that he was cast as the villain in the next Marvel movie. Not surprising to me at all, right? I'd be like, okay, Nick Cage is the villain in the next Marvel movie.
He almost did Superman, you know that, right? He almost did Superman.
Yeah. But if you compare him to one of his contemporaries, if they were like, hey, we just cast Richard Gere as the villain in the next Marvel movie, you'd be like, really?
Totally. Yeah.
Richard Gere?
So
I didn't think he was still.
The way I think about it with Cage and also with Keanu Reeves too, in the right hands, with the right director at the helm, they do incredible things with them. You just need the right matchup and pairing of director and actor. Same thing with Keanu
Yeah.
Reeves, because there's many roles that Keanu has done that I just am like, I can't watch this guy. I can't watch him perform. But many times he nails it. I mean, he's been in some of my favorite movies of all time.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So we had a whole conversation with Dan Merle recently where we were talking about the greatest 90s action career of any actor. And it was like, who wins the action movie from the 90s action hero belt? And in the end, it's Keanu. He beats out Schwarzenegger.
Point Break and Speed. Point Break and Speed. What else is there?
And The Matrix, dude.
And that was 1999.
Point Break, Speed, and The Matrix. So you get
for
all
sure.
three.
For sure.
It's not even close, right?
It's not even close, because that was like next level. So like Die Hard was in the 80s, right? First Die Hard?
Die Hard's 88, yeah.
Yeah. Because I was talking about this with, I always have the conversation like greatest action film of all time. And so I was watching True Lies the other day, which is probably one of my favorites of all time. True Lies?
Yeah.
So True Lies falls in the category more, even though it's broad, of like action comedy, because it's hysterical.
Yeah.
But it has and it's James Cameron too. It has some of the greatest action ever, but it's also hysterical. It's sexy. Who's the guy who just recently passed away who's in all of Cameron's movies? The one from Big Love.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude.
Bill Paxton.
Paxton, and he steals the show.
He steals the show. It's the greatest role. It's so good.
Yeah.
And Tom Arnold too. Anyway, so like you have that movie and you have Die Hard. I think they tie for, in my opinion, best action comedy. Okay. And then I would go of all time. I would probably go with Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think T2 is the greatest action film ever.
Or Aliens, the second one, of course.
Yeah. I think if you're going pure action movie, I think greatest action movie of all time is T2. I think it
definitely
is. I love Aliens. I think Aliens is amazing and it holds up really well too. But I think T2 is special for a number of reasons, and I still contend that is the greatest. It's not my favorite. I think T2 is my top 50 favorite films of all time, but it's Point Break was my number one favorite film ever for a long time.
Point Break is amazing
for a long time,
for sure.
Yeah. Behind my head here, I think those are 3 Swayze posters there.
Nice.
Kind of in the corner. You got Roadhouse, North and South, and Youngblood.
First of all,
real
Swayze Roadhouse is so good. And also so ridiculous of a movie too, but it's so good. Like they own it. They just own it. It's an absurd film. But I was going to say, I worked with these guys who made the theatrical Point Break Live, it's called. Have you heard of that?
I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw that. I saw it once.
Yeah. So they did one called Tom Gunn Live, which is still running. So it's a compilation. It's a compilation of all of Tom Cruise's movies, focusing on Top Gun, of course. And they included me in it, doing like a video kind of waiting for Godot thing, where I had an interstitial video thing. And then all throughout the show, maybe I'll show up, and maybe I'll show up, but I never show up. But it was a real honor and a privilege to be a part of the creators of Point Break Live. Those guys are great.
It's such a fun show. I think I saw it twice. Yeah, I want to say, and I was the second guy. I was the runner-up on stage to get to be.
Oh wow!
I remember when I said they picked the other guy. I was disappointed.
It has a lot of repeat value, because if you don't get picked, you want to go back again and get picked.
You want to do it again? Yeah. It's a great concept. But yeah,
and it's a rowdy show. It's a rowdy show too. People who are getting wasted there too.
And the meatball sandwiches. It's absurd. It's such a funny thing. I love when IP like that lives on and kind of has like the second life, and that's I think it's honestly one of the things I find so. I had a whole conversation yesterday about this over on SEN Live about basically like the idea that these Netflix movies and streaming properties and why that's a good thing or an okay thing. And I think it's great. It's just that movies that are released on streaming platforms don't have the same shelf life, or even really the same ability to have a shelf life that movies that actually have a proper theatrical release and a campaign,
the windows,
movie trailers. It's not even because of quality, or it's not because people aren't watching them and talking about them. Because if you think about the biggest Netflix movies, like think about ones recently, like The Five Bloods, or movies like a movie like Roma, or these are movies that were like best director at the Oscars,
and there was some marketing involved. Yeah, and they're like marquee titles. Yeah, sure,
heavily talked about. But the thing is, they come and go so quickly.
They don't carry the same weight.
Because of the nature. Because of the nature of the platform. Because the platform constantly has to feature new content to keep you interested. And so what ends up happening is they live in this file on Netflix But
Mhm.
and I think maybe in 5 years we'll feel differently about this, because in 5 years probably Netflix will own their own theater chain, and
Mhm.
it'll probably be a whole different ball game we live in. But you think about all the movies you loved growing up and all the impact those things had. Nothing in the streaming era, almost at all, has really had that impact. The closest is like
Mhm.
Stranger Things, or like it's really really hard. Like even Stranger Things, I think it had a huge impact, right?
Sure.
But still not the same as a
No.
giant movie, a
No.
live Broadway
Yeah,
show. I mean,
yeah.
come on.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just right, exactly. I just think they're mirroring the cultural kind of zeitgeist of how everyone's brains are wired a different way these days in terms of consuming content. Where I don't know how old you are, but I'm on the cusp of two different worlds, and I definitely am more of a practical effects guy versus all CGI written films and deep
Right,
fake.
right, right.
Even though I've been involved in a lot of deep fake stuff as Tom Cruise, that's like the wave of the future, and video game kind of like graphics. Everyone's minds are wired, the new generations, to that kind of content, instant gratification, in and out. They don't really care about the windows and the way you're describing, a theatrical release and all these different things. They don't care about that. They just want to crave it, move on. They crave the content, they experience it, they move on. It's a whole different ballgame now.
Yeah,
And
well,
it's interesting that you said about sorry to interrupt, about the Netflix, and maybe one day they'll own a theater, because they've been so against owning, or basically the theatrical release in general. And while Amazon was more of a proponent of that, but
I
nowadays
mean,
they might change their tune. They might actually own
they
an AMC one
of
day.
course they will. Of course they
Probably.
will. I
Yeah.
mean, think about it, right? From the
Yeah.
perspective of how money flows for content. So
Sure.
we're all at home right now watching content, and all the streaming services are booming because of it. And the theaters are suffering because of it. They're
Yeah.
not getting people in. But once
Right.
the pandemic is over, and once you can go to the theaters again, people will want to go to the theater. So if a movie can make anywhere between, major release can gross worldwide anywhere between, like, 30 million to like a
Yeah.
billion or more, right? I mean, if you're not talking about the biggest tent poles in the world, maybe let's just say
Yeah.
30, between 30 and 150 or something like that.
Hmm.
It's ridiculous to think that just because you put that movie in a theater, people won't stream it and they'll cancel their subscription. Of course they will. So why
Hmm.
wouldn't you just take your biggest property that's supposed to be a Netflix movie, own your own theater chain, open 100 of them nationwide or
Hmm.
worldwide for that matter, and get people to buy tickets for your major releases,
And do
because
you
they
think they'll
will.
just do
And
you think
you'll
they'll just do like an exclusive for a week and then open it up for streaming? Like how would they separate would they do a window, or would it be simultaneous release?
I
People
think
who
it
want to
might
see
just
it
be
in
a
theaters.
simultaneous.
Yeah,
I think it might
probably.
be a simultaneous release, to be honest. And if you think about it,
Probably.
I don't think if it's a simultaneous release, maybe the movie that they wanted to make 100 only makes 40.
They'll and
But
they'll
I don't
only
think
you're
that.
right. You're right. And they'll only do it with certain films. They're not going to do it with their whole, all of their pipeline. They'll do it with a few
Yeah,
films that are special marquee films. And yeah, it's more for marketing. It's more for like, and maybe Academy Award consideration.
I just think that even more than showing only Netflix films in their theaters, I wouldn't be surprised if Netflix
Oh,
opens
interesting.
up a theater and shows
Yeah.
movies. They
Oh, that's
distribute films,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Right. Like, and
Yeah.
and you sign up for Netflix, get your $14.99 a month subscription, and you get one free movie this year in a theater or
Did you
something.
see? Did you see Netflix taking over 20, however many years ago, 10 years ago, whatever we were getting mail DVDs. Do you see this happening?
No, definitly not. I didn't. I mean, I think
Why
they're.
not? Why not?
Well, I think when it was purely just shipping us DVDs,
Yeah.
I just couldn't conceptualize what was next yet. I think even
Well,
because
how
back.
about when streaming became a small conversation, a preliminary conversation? Did you see that streaming could be the future?
Yeah, once it started to be like you would stream movies that were available, and nothing's ever good on Netflix, that whole
Right.
conversation. And I think once that started happening, it started to become clear. However, when the actual transition happened, so I
Mm.
don't own, I mean, I own about 30 DVDs in a box somewhere that I kept.
I
Right.
own 30 Blu-rays that I love, like my favorite movies. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've owned them for a very long time, but I don't know exactly when the transition happened, when I decided that
Mm.
I was just willing to spend $4 to watch a movie at any point. That's
Right.
just the only way I would consume content anymore. But it happened, and I don't even flinch. I want to watch a movie right now. This
Me
dumb
either.
thriller from the
Yeah.
90s. Yeah, $4. I'm watching this thing now.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
Like
Yeah.
that's 100% my default. I
Right.
don't own a DVD player.
Hmm.
I have no way of playing a DVD at my house.
Hmm.
Right? Like that's the truth.
Yeah.
So That I couldn't have foreseen that it was going to be so drastic. I mean, I'm 32, and 10 years ago, I was living in LA. I still like rented movies from Vidiots over on Pico. It's closed now, but it was like one of the last great video
I remember
stores.
that. Yeah.
You know,
they had this thing in college when I was going to college, so many years ago, 1997, called Cosmo.com. Now, Cosmo, have you heard of it? Yeah.
I remember.
It wasn't just movies they would deliver, but they would deliver groceries, condoms, whatever, any items like that, and they promised in under an hour or less, and they always delivered. Like, we loved it as college kids, loved it. We were like, this is the greatest thing ever.
I used it. I used to use it. Yeah. I love it.
And they lasted for a little while. They had some big investments, and then they crumbled. This is before Amazon.
Yeah. It was when Amazon was a bookseller. It was an online bookseller.
It might have just been starting to be a bookseller. Just starting. I don't even know what it was.
Late 90s.
It was really early, yeah.
The culture of convenience that we live in now is a pretty stark contrast to things just 10 years ago. It's hard to imagine when you think about getting shit done in your day. Like, I need to check off my to-do list. The vast majority of it can be done from your computer. You just click a button, like, and that's it. Takes care of it. You know,
the world is at your fingertips.
Yeah. So the story I got to ask you about before we get out of here, because it would be remiss to not ask, is you famously got to meet Cruise once.
I did.
You told me this story one time, and I feel that the people watching the show, knowing that you have actually met Tom Cruise, would need to hear the story.
Yeah, I mean, so essentially, didn't plan on this. I was at Chateau Marmont, the famous hotel here, and now it's a private club. Believe it or not, it's turned into that, but because of COVID. But I was having drinks and some dinner with some friends, and a friend of mine in the garden of the chateau where we were having dinner beckoned me over. He called me over from the other side, and because it's such a small town, Hollywood, so I was bound to know someone else there that I knew.
Yeah.
So his name is Matthew Belinsky. He's an attorney, an entertainment attorney. He calls me over, and he knows everybody. He's like one of these guys who just always got his finger on the pulse when it comes to like Hollywood gossip or what's going on. And he calls me over. He's like, Evan, he knows I've been impersonating Tom Cruise for 8 years at this point. And he says, Tom Cruise is in the building. I don't know where he is, but I heard a rumor that he's here. So keep your eyes peeled and look around, right? So I'm looking everywhere. I was very excited, we're all immediately filled up, swelling up with energy. And I'm looking all over the room, no sign of Cruise. I excuse myself, go to the bathroom, look under the stalls, no feet swinging, I didn't see him at all. He wasn't hanging on to anything. So I go back to my seat, and I tell my friends like that Tom Cruise was here, and they were like, "Oh shoot, you missed him. That sucks." And I was a little bit upset by that. I was like, I guess there'd be another opportunity. And all of a sudden, I feel some presence just to my left, like 10 feet to my left. He's there. He's there. His back is to me. He's sitting down with like Jeremy Renner, people from The Office, people from Zero Dark 30. It was like a weird hodgepodge of like actors and personalities.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Like 20 people. I don't know what the occasion was for, but I think he had just started doing Mission Impossible with Jeremy Renner. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I was like on cloud nine. I was actually Facebooking people. I was posting, Tom Cruise is here. What should I do? Like asking like taking a poll, right? And everyone was like, you have to meet him. You have to buy him a bottle of champagne. Someone proposed. So I was like, okay, I called the waiter over. I was like, I want to buy this $400 bottle of champagne. And I don't have $400 I don't even think I had that much money in my bank account.
Yeah.
But I put it on my credit card. It's one of those emergency fund, expenses.
It's like, this is a once in a lifetime possible.
Exactly.
Right?
So I proposed this to the waiter, and the waiter immediately shut me down and said, no, you'll be banned for life and I'll be fired. And I was like, okay, wow. That puts a nail in that coffin. So I guess I won't be doing that. All right. And he was not impressed. Like, I think what happened was I said, look, I'm a Tom Cruise impersonator. I thought it'd be nice to commemorate our meeting by, he knows about my work, and he was just like, no fucking way. Right.
Yeah. So Tom Cruise, man. No fucking
right. And they have a very strict policy there just in general. Like, you can't approach celebrities in the garden of the chateau. So I respected their policy, and I said, okay. So I was resigned to the fact that I would just breathe the same oxygen as him and I wouldn't meet him that night.
Yeah.
And I continued having my dessert and looking over every once in a while to see how he's doing. But that was it. I was just having a good time. I was having drinks. I ordered a few more drinks, getting progressively more drunk. And people start clearing out of the garden, and it's like 2 a.m. at some point, and it's just our parties left. And he's now saying goodbye to his party, and they're shuffling out. He's shaking people and smiling and laughing and kind of doing an impression of me doing him and vice versa.
Yeah, right.
And
you like literally were watching him do his like shake people and laugh thing.
Yeah. It was amazing. Truly.
Yeah.
Very, very surreal. And I was definitely drunk at this point and loving every minute of it. It was like the best drunk high I've ever had. So he leaves, and my girlfriend at the time, Donna, said to me, "There is no way in hell you're leaving here tonight without meeting Tom Cruise." And she said this, by the way, a little bit earlier in the night, but that's the line she said. I just forgot to inject into the story. So now it's just Donna, myself, and my friend Jimmy Franklin, who's like this other legendary figure in Franklin Village, where we all used to live. And she excuses herself to go to the bathroom, Donna. I had my phone. My phone was dead. It was the end of the night. My phone was dead. Luckily, I gave Donna Jimmy's phone number just in case my phone went dead. So Jimmy gets a phone call, 2 a.m. We're the only people left. It's last call. And he picks up. He doesn't pick up the phone at first. He says he's afraid to pick it up. He thinks it's a solicitor. And I said, Jimmy, it's not a solicitor. It's 2 a.m. It might be a booty call, if anything. Pick up the phone. And he finally picks it up after the second time around. And he looks at me. And he's the kind of guy who just messes around with you, right? And he looks at me and doesn't laugh at all. No smile. And he says, "Tom Cruise is waiting for you in the lobby." And I said, "Shut the fuck up." And he said, he said it again, without smiling. I'm smiling now. He said, "Tom Cruise is waiting for you in the lobby." And I get up out of my chair and I sprint from the garden of the chateau to the lobby. And he's there waiting for me. And it's like a slow turn. He's talking to Donna. Donna was talking to him. Donna had stopped him in the lobby.
Yeah.
And we like, slowly meet each other. And it was like we fell in love and said, "You complete me. It's an honor and a privilege to meet you." Laugh and shook each other. And it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And we took a picture together, and the first one came out blurred. So we had to get a second photo. He wasn't going to wait for a third, so I lucked out. And then Jeremy Renner the whole time was standing directly behind him. And he's about to get on his motorcycle and go and drive away. And it was just like, what? It was the craziest experience. And behind us, drunk in the photo that I have, which is on my website, nottomcruise.com, is Evan Peters, the great actor Evan Peters, drunk out of his mind, just wobbling in the back like this. He basically photobombed our photo. Drunk. It's amazing. It was like a legendary meeting. Yeah, it was great.
So that's what an ideal moment of a story that is. And I feel like those things that happen in LA, there's sort of, you almost never plan for them. They never really happen the way that you think they're going to. Yeah. And they definitely never happen the way you don't plan on them. They just sort of happen, and then you realize life has passed in this moment, and I now have this memory, and I have to appreciate what I have. Not
only that, or there's an opportunity you have to seize. Now, if it weren't for Donna, it wouldn't have happened, because I was just going to let it go and let Tom Cruise walk on out of my life, like two ships passing in the night. But Donna made sure that it happened, because she was just totally fearless and just stopped him, and that's it. And luckily, he waited for me. Like, that's amazing. He didn't have to. He could have said no.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's wild. Have you ever met another celebrity that you think there was even an even remote comparison to starstruck or excitement, or it was class of its own? That
was definitely in a class of its own. I don't really get starstruck. I was definitely a little starstruck with Cruise.
I think I would be too.
He's a magnetic personality. He doesn't waver at all. Like total VIP laser focused treatment. You're in a bubble. You're in his bubble. Like I said, Jeremy Renner was behind him. He didn't pay him the time of day. It was just him and I. It was just Tom Cruise and I. That's it. And that's it. We were one. It was wild.
He's my all-time number one interview that I want to get someday in my life.
You will, for sure.
and it's always
Yeah.
been it's been that way for a very long time.
Yeah.
The Cruise interview that I hope
Mhm.
someday happens, and I've never really gotten close. I've talked to publicists before. I've almost been on junket lists before, but you really have to be in with the right publication, a senior position, the editor of some huge entertainment company, so they let you go be the one to do the junket. But for the most part, it's really hard, and they fly to Paris or wherever the fuck the thing is that the interview
Right.
that you're doing, right? You get
Sure.
3 minutes with Tom or something.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. You better be prepared. Yeah. You better not get flustered. Yeah.
But I mean, Chris Hardwick back in 2014 for Edge of Tomorrow did it. He did an hour-long episode of the Nerdist podcast, I remember, and I listened to that, and I was always like, "Wow, like that's like a dream scenario." Is the hour-long conversation?
That's a long time.
Yeah,
and was that, you think that was a good thing for Cruise being on that show? Was that very helpful for him?
I sometimes will think back to like moments where you get really into something. You don't realize you're getting really into something. You look back and you feel like you've been a fan of it or invested in it for a long time. But you don't quite realize when it clicked. And for me, I definitely remember 2008 was when it clicked that I liked Tom Cruise, that I was a fan of his. I remember I saw Valkyrie in the theater and I read this article in Esquire, I think, and they described him as having aggressive sincerity. And I've used that phrase ever since because I think it's the best description of Tom Cruise I've ever heard in my life.
Aggressive sincerity. I've never heard that.
His aggressive sincerity.
I like that. Yeah, it makes sense. Sure.
Yeah. And I remember reading that, and it was probably around, because like I think about the movies that were coming out, whether it was like Night and Day or Oblivion. I think about Jack Reacher and a lot of that stuff
what about Minority Report? What about Minority Report?
That's way early. That's 2002. So I'd seen.
And you weren't a fan then. You weren't a fan at that time.
I was like, okay, so I saw, like, from the time I was probably 8 or 9 years old, I would think.
Yeah.
I saw most of his stuff in theaters. I can recall seeing probably the first Cruise movie I can remember seeing in a theater was probably Mission Impossible 2, 2000. Sure. Probably, and I think I probably saw that, Vanilla Sky, Minority Report, Last Samurai, Collateral, everything from then on, pretty much, I would guess. But it wasn't until this Hardwick interview that I think I remember listening and thinking, this guy's like just a fucking legend. Like I think that was when I realized that he was a little bit more of a real person. Like there seemed like I could just hear him talking. Like I can actually just imagine having this conversation with this guy. That was, I think, with the click. And I think it's also that interview is one of the great examples of why I got into doing this, why I wanted to do this. This is why I like talking to people. I love interviewing people.
Wow.
The whole dream of my career traces back to a couple interviews I remember listening to with Bill Simmons, Mark Maron, Hardwick. And that's definitely one of the ones I remember listening to and thinking, I could do this. I think I'd be good at this. Yeah.
Well, I believe you'll get there. You're a driven young man.
Thank you. Well, I'm honored that you were willing to do the show, man. I mean,
of course.
I think back to showing the Twilight video. I was sitting at this little bar in Seattle in probably like 2010 or something like that with some friends. I was, guys, you have to watch this thing. And I watched it like 4 times in a row with them, dying laughing. I think about years later, and here we are, and that just that kills me. That's the cosmos of the fucking universe.
One of the big disappointments is that I have is that Take 180, when they went bankrupt, is the company that hired me for this. Disney's Take 180. They all the videos went away, so all my view counts went away. I think it had 5 million views at one point. It was like a huge video. So yeah, I did like 60 videos for them. 60. They gave me a show. They gave me a show called the Tom Cruise Show, or the Not Tom Cruise Show. Sorry, and the disclaimer at the front, because they had all these like high-priced Disney lawyers to like make sure we didn't get sued. The disclaimer at the front said, he may look, act, smell, taste like Tom Cruise, but he is not Tom Cruise. They had to say that because
I was just going to ask you, like, thinking about it. So I know you've got the wig, and you've got the brown leather jacket. I see. Are those Tom Cruise? I got
the wig right here. Look, here's the wig.
Okay, here's the wig, and you've got the glasses. How about the brown leather jacket? Is that just your jacket you like to wear, or is that a Cruise jacket?
My jacket. No, it's not a Cruise jacket. I mean, I guess I could like try to find the exact jacket he wears and like do it up.
Yeah.
Like I have a flight suit. I've got like a navy whites. I've got a bomber jacket, but they're not exact replicas from the set. They're just simply they're passable, I'm sure if I really wanted to take it up a notch, I could do that. Just try to find the exact thing. I have like an eyes wide shut mask. But it's not necessary to do what I do, to be honest. Again, I'm not like a lookalike cosplay artist. That's what other people do. I don't do that. I'm an impersonator. Like I do funny sketch comedy,
Yeah.
So
So let me ask you this.
yeah,
Tom Cruise movies, what's the
yeah.
one you go back the most? What's your favorite?
So it used to be Risky Business and Jerry Maguire, but
Both great. Yeah.
both great. And Risky Business would never get made today, but it was a very
Yeah.
aspirational film as a young kid because it was our biggest
Incredible. In
fantasies come to life.
83, I mean,
Yeah,
just the best for that time. So good.
yeah. And then they made the what was it, The Girlfriend Next Door or something? That was like an homage to that.
The
The
girl
Girl
next
Next
door. You're talking
Door.
about
Yeah,
the
yeah,
one,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Alicia
That was
Cuthbert. Yeah, yeah,
that was like a straight homage to Risky Business. They did a really good job with that. Paul Dano was in that. But
yeah.
but I would say my favorite one now was Edge of Tomorrow because it just has so much repeat value. It is one of the best character arcs ever, and he just nails it. He's so good. It's like people say, like, years ago he was in his prime. I think he kind of was in his prime in that movie. That movie was incredible.
Yeah.
And him and the lead actress, what's her name?
Emily Blunt. Yeah.
Emily Blunt have the best chemistry. It was just a
Incredible.
great movie.
There's
Great
supposedly a
movie.
sequel. Supposedly a sequel coming. Actually, when I
Can't
think about
wait.
so I do a bad Tom Cruise by your standards. I do my own little bit, but
Yeah.
my Tom Cruise lines I do actually mostly come from that movie.
Oh,
Because
really?
I think because I think so. There's this one scene in the movie where they're in the barn and they've flown out. I don't know how
Yeah.
many times you've seen it. I've seen this movie like
Yeah,
30
yeah,
times. It's
yeah,
one of
yeah,
my
yeah.
favorite movies.
And
And
he
she's
can't
gotten
figure out he
shot.
can't figure out how to save her because every scenario he
Yeah.
plays out. Yeah, yeah.
And she wants to get in the helicopter,
Yeah.
and she's walking, and he looks across to her, and he goes, the line I think he says, "Rita, if you get in the helicopter, you die." And she's like, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
And she's like, whatever. And he goes, you die here, right here. And there's like some of the it's terrible by your standards, but the way he does it, and those lines.
Yeah.
I like to throw in anytime I do my Tom Cruise, like right here, that thing.
I heard it, by the way. I heard it. You had the cadence down. Yeah.
Yeah, for a second, yeah. But that movie's incredible. It's probably the best thing he's done. Honestly, thinking about it, if I trace back, what is the best Tom Cruise movie before or after Edge? It can't be anything.
Well, the only other one, but no, go on. I want to hear yours. Go.
So Mission Impossible's 4, 5, and 6 are all terrific. I think 6 is the best of them, and 6 is really I'd put
Which
6
one was that again? What was it called? Which one was that?
Fallout, Henry
Fallout.
Cavill one.
That's his top rated one on Rotten Tomatoes. His worst rated film of all time is Cocktail, believe it or not, which I don't think is the worst movie that he's done, but it's still the worst rated that he has. I think it's like a 5% or something on Rotten Tomatoes. But I will say my favorite performance of Cruise is by far is Magnolia.
Magnolia, yeah, 99. Yeah, I mean, it's probably his best. I think, because I just love that movie just in general. I think everything about that movie is amazing. I think there are so many scenes in that movie that I love. But that's also a part of his career, a much different portion of his career. I mean, that movie happened 15 years before Edge. I think probably the best movie that he did before Edge of Tomorrow it's probably Mission Impossible 3, honestly, 2006.
That's the one with Philip Seymour Hoffman, right? J.J. Abrams, yeah. A Rabbit's Foot. That was great.
A Rabbit's Foot, exactly. Yeah, fun. Well, always fun talking about Tom Cruise with the greatest Tom Cruise I know that's not Tom Cruise.
This is great.
Yeah.
There you go. The fucking zoo's closed, man. The fucking zoo's closed.
Yeah, dude. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I'm glad I caught you in a moment of for free before the most exciting part of your life starts. I'm really happy for you guys. Please give my best to Lily, and I'll be following closely. I'll post this tomorrow. I'll tag you and all the things. And
thanks for having me, Ben. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd love to catch up in a non-public setting once you're adjusting to being a dad, man. Congratulations.
We'll play some magic, okay? Promise me that.
We got to do that. We got to do that. I'm all in. Before you still have decks. Let's do it in the next month, man.
Yeah, it has to be. All right, be good, buddy.
Done and done. That wraps up yet another episode of A Great Conversation here on Nerds in Suits. Be sure to leave a comment below. Comments mean everything to the channel. Hit that like button. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Give Evan a follow on anything and everything he's doing. You can check his stuff out at Not Tom Cruise. He's on Cameo. He's on TikTok. He's got a lot of cool stuff going on, so be sure to follow along there. A big thank you to all of my double diamond patrons here in the Nerd Network. I've got Philip Gustafson, Jake Yakavetta, Jeremiah Morris, Thomas Goslin, and Trevor Fast. You guys rock. And of course, to every other patron in the Nerd Network, people who are trying to get a seat on the NIS Endurance, all the other cool stuff that you guys are following along with, a huge thank you to supporting the channel. I'm excited to be back in the saddle doing full-time content here on Nerds in Suits. Things are starting to look up. So a straightening of the tie and a big thank you to each and every one of you guys. I'll talk to y'all very soon. Have a good one.